I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host and executive producer of Rising Up with Sonali, an independently produced, subscriber-supported program nationally syndicated to radio stations, free speech TV, and podcast platforms. Our interviews are available to subscribers at risingupwithsonali.com. In June 2025, hundreds of thousands of people mobilized in cities around the United States to reject the idea of modern-day monarchy under the Trump administration. Now, on October 18th, in an event that will be televised on Free Speech TV, a second so-called No Kings mobilization promises to be even bigger and more wide-ranging than the first. One of its organizers now joins me. Glo Sahay is an experienced organizer and IT professional who 10 years ago campaigned for Bernie Sanders and also organized around the Flint water crisis. She founded Political Revolution when the Sanders' campaign ended and helps to support progressive grassroots candidates nationwide. Her organization also helps provide infrastructure support to 50501. Welcome to the program, Glo.
Yes, thank you so much, Sonali. I'm so excited to be here.
So I covered the No Kings rally here in Southern California, where I'm based in Los Angeles. And out of curiosity, I went to the No Kings website to see where the LA event would be happening on Saturday. And what I found was overwhelming. Literally every city, every town in Southern California, no matter how big or small, is having a No Kings mobilization. Some have multiple mobilizations. This definitely seems, at least here where I'm based, much bigger. Give me a sense of the scope of the second No Kings rally and how it compares to what we saw in June of this year.
Absolutely. So right now we have over 2,500 events, which is uh, very nearly close to double of how many events we had on June 14th. In addition to that, we have events in almost every single congressional county. There's only 15 in which we do not have events. And in terms of RSVPs, we are receiving close to 40,000 RSVPs daily. So this is going to be an extremely momentous event.
The first No Kings rally was held on Flag Day and Trump's birthday to coincide with this grand military parade that he, spent millions of tax dollars on, and it was really meant to be a rebuke of what he was trying to do since then. Since the rallies in June, we've seen a real escalation, especially in terms of ICE agents and National Guards in cities around the country. In fact, that first No Kings mobilization took place just a week or two after here in Los Angeles we saw the start of the ICE surge. And I'm wondering whether you can identify the reasons why, since between June and October, we've seen this huge enthusiasm for a second No Kings rally. Aside from ICE, or maybe in addition to ICE, what has Trump done?
Yes. Um, since June, we've seen like an increasing amount of escalation from the Trump administration. There's so many things. It's hard to really name them all. But I think the primary thing that is really present right now is the government shutdown, which is now, denying care to millions of Americans. And we knew that there was a risk of this shutdown happening before, even though now the Trump administration is blaming it on No Kings. We, suspected that during the recess they would just, continue to shut down the government and then blame it on, Democrats. Another thing that they're doing is trying to correlate No Kings with the Democratic Party, which is not true at all. This coalition is completely independently run by hundreds of organizations. Um, And none of them, this is a nonpartisan issue. You know, the issue of our freedom, our safety, and our free speech is completely nonpartisan issue. So Trump continuing to escalate his narrative against immigrants, against women, against people of color is now it's not a it's not a partisan issue, even though he keeps trying to make it one.
Yeah, let's talk about what people are actually feeling. The issue of healthcare is a really, really big one. 20 million Americans are going to see their healthcare premiums under Obamacare jump because the government ended subsidies. We're seeing things like, airports lacking federal FAA air control. And we're seeing, national parks start to shut down and all sorts of impacts on people's daily lives. And of course, in the meantime, we're seeing a lot of our money being spent on deploying National Guards to cities like Portland, where the most dangerous thing you can find is a bunch of people in frog suits.
Yes.
So it seems like such a waste of our tax dollars. Is that cutting through right-wing propaganda and even mainstream news failures to really point out what's happening? Are enough people seeing, you think, the damage that Trump is wreaking?
I truly do. I think that first and foremost, when you have a president who's only focusing on generating hate, there are going to be, some people that are focused on this because we make it so easy to focus on, otherisms. But I think that people are seeing, and several, otherwise conservative influencers, pundits, and politicians have said, like, this is not, what we voted for, which is, I mean, obviously, like a lot of us saw this coming. We tried to warn people, but again, this comes down to nonpartisan issues. One of the things that I think is really escalating the narrative that he's trying to put out was his recent executive order around declaring Antifa a terrorist organization. However, we know that this is not an organization. It's simply a name for a belief system, which is anti-fascism. And I think a lot of people um, can, clearly see, especially when you relate it back to the actual issues of healthcare, the government not functioning, that this is just simply all like theater. It's all political theater to be able to push this very hateful narrative in order to take more control over the American people, take away our free speech and our civil liberties, and also continue to influence this hateful rhetoric. So I hope more and more people can see that. You mentioned the Portland frogs. This is like a great way to show like these are, Portland is extremely peaceful. It's full of artful people. It's full of people who love nature. Um, and to take a whole, group of people and declare them violent or, to continue to push divides between the American people, this should hopefully, and I think it is, sending huge red flags across the nation. And that's why I think that, when you think about the number of people that are normally politically active, and we know that only around half of our Americans vote in elections, that's because we've become so disenfranchised. And now we have this president who's driving this narrative. But I think most people in America are loving people. They're family-oriented people. They're people that want to help their neighbors. And so No Kings is a message that anybody can come and join. Even if you've never attended a political rally, you can come and hold a sign and under the simple message that we don't, this is a democracy. We don't want kings. We don't want hateful rhetoric.
I want to focus a little bit more on this attack on so-called Antifa. The Trump administration, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem are quite gleeful about, I think just pulling the wool over their base's eyes to suggest that a label such as anti-fascism is
Mhm.
somehow a very real organized formation of radical left-wing terrorists, when of
Mhm.
course it's simply people being against fascism. If Antifa was bad, then the whole reason the US fought in World War II would be sort of undermined. Do you think that that'll have a chilling effect, or is having a chilling effect? We know that the strongest way to counter that is to simply be bold and to not give in to these pressure tactics. But some people are worried. People have kids. They worry about their jobs. They're scared of showing up and being labeled Antifa. There's a lot of surveillance as well that people are fearful of. Well, what advice do you give to people who might be grappling with whether they want to show up on October 18th because they're worried about being designated a terrorist?
Mhm. Yeah, this is an extremely good point. Before I directly answer the question, just circling back, like you mentioned, so just Antifa as a label, this is the first step that dictators do to dehumanize a group of people. And you mentioned World War II. This is the first thing that Adolf Hitler did to dehumanize Jewish people. And so now he's not focusing on any um, specific race or creed. He's just saying Antifa. So whoever he gets to choose is Antifa is Antifa. So this is the extremely dangerous thing that people need to understand. When you have broad labels about people without a face that's causing people to generate fear and hate, this is history has shown us that this is the first step to dehumanizing groups of people. Um, in terms of the fear, so I hope to alleviate some fear around attending these events. So these are completely nonviolent, extremely well organized events. And these could be events organized by your neighbor. Again, it's not run by, like Antifa is not an organization, it's run by very prominent organizations that have extremely strong coalitions across the nation, such as Indivisible. The 5051 movement has been working since February in nonviolent protest against authoritarianism. We have other organizations anchoring these events. We have Public Citizen, we have Move On, we have Working Families Party. And all of these organizations are coming together to provide this infrastructure for these events to happen. And in terms of safety, we do have safety protocol, and each event is required to have a safety plan and a safety protocol in place. So we can be 100% assured that if there is any escalation, it will only be from Trump. And that is why we are fighting, and why it's so important to fight is because this is a completely nonviolent free speech protest for the people, by the people, of the people. And if there is any escalation, then we will stand in the face of it, defiant and
And
nonviolently.
it seems as though, just also looking at history, whenever fascist dictators try to scare people, if those folks give in right away, the fascism won. That's it. It's the end of it. And also, another thing that we've learned is oftentimes the facade is quite thin, and actually, they tend to be weaker than we think they are. And the bigger the mobilization, the stronger, or the easier that facade falls apart, right? It's not as strong as we think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely correct. So when I think about this, like, so when we talk about protesting dictators and authoritarians in it's called a backsliding democratic context. There's a ton of research done about this in a book called Civic Resistance, written by Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan. And they've done documented research that shows that in a democratic backsliding context, if there's a continued resistance by even a small percent of the population. So a sustained resistance, meaning we are doing mass mobilizations, but we're also continuing to attack pillars of power. So that could be financial, it could be business, the things that are upholding this regime. There's a 51% chance, which I know seems slim, but it's still that 51% could be like any one of the people listening on this call. It could be, for me, when I think about 51%, and this is 51% that we can defeat the authoritarian regime, that 51% for me translates to every single person doing everything they can to convince their brothers, sisters, mothers, grandfathers, grandparents, cousins, friends that, let's get over these divisive issues that have been driven into us. Let's look at the facts. Like, our rights are being taken away, people are being dehumanized, our healthcare is being taken away. We've just went on a huge increase of budget to go from $5 billion to ICE to $178 billion budget, for just to hire staff so that they continue to take people off the streets in their homes. If people believe in America and the democracy of America, I think everyone can agree, like, everyone has the right to be here, to be safe in your home, and that's not what's happening today. They're also using the media to skew facts about who's actually being taken and who's being prosecuted. The majority of people being taken and targeted by ICE are now like non-criminal, or people with no criminal background whatsoever. And there are even some American citizens being taken just for being Black or brown or being perceived to be an immigrant. They're also stopping children in the streets. I saw a video on TikTok about two 15-year-olds being stopped by masked ICE agents on their way home, just in their neighborhood. So this is extremely undemocratic. And if we
Right.
continue to fight all together, then there is, like I said, that chance that we're going to break through this narrative, but we have to keep resisting. We can't, like you mentioned, the facade, it's very thin. If we continue to resist and people show up on No Kings and then continue to fight and take more actions and convince more people in their circles, we do have a chance at getting Trump to back down.
Well, finally, Glo, is the biggest mobilization going to be in Washington, D.C., or at least that's the plan? I know Free Speech TV is planning on live broadcasting from No Kings. Give the logistical details, if you will, websites where people can also find out their local mobilizations.
Absolutely. So yes, you mentioned on there's going to be a flagship event in Washington, D.C. And we will have speakers, some politicians, and some organizations to have a huge rally there. And so if you are looking to attend that or any other local protests, you can simply go to nokings.org and then find your local event. Yeah, there's over 2,500 events and counting. So there's probably one right in your hometown. And the other main thing is showing up. They haven't been reporting the protests that have been happening every month that we've been putting on, but this one will be the biggest one. People will see it. It will be unavoidable. So please come.
I want to thank you so much for joining us this week before this happens. It's happening right away on Saturday, October 18th. The website is nokings.org. Glo, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Sonali.
My guest has been Glo Sahay. She's an experienced organizer and IT professional. 10 years ago, campaigned for Bernie Sanders and organized around the Flint water crisis. And she's the founder of Political Revolution. We've been talking about the No Kings rallies taking place across the country, October 18th. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host and executive producer of Rising Up with Sonali, an independently produced, subscriber-supported program nationally syndicated to radio stations, Free Speech TV, and podcast platforms.